Nothing beats talking to a camera when the camera's not recording. Okay, today we are doing our monthly wrap up. I'm really excited to do this month's wrap up because I think I had really good books this month. Oh, let me turn this around for you guys to see. I read a total of 7 books. I think I have a new way of doing these wrap ups to make it more intriguing and more fun for you guys to watch. So let me know in the comments if you enjoyed this version of like editing and all the different things that I added to the descriptions of these books, just to make it more fun, obviously, instead of me just sitting here being like blah 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 blah. I rated a blah 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 blah. You know, like I wanted to be more, not interactive, but just more fun to watch. But let's just jump right in. The first book I read for the month of July is If He Had Been With Me by Laura Nolan. Now this book tears your heart into shreds. It isn't just one big sad moment that you cry it out. No, the book itself is a collection of sad moments, tiny bit sad that you like makes you ache a little bit, and you're kind of like, oh wow, okay, like this is really depressing. I rated this book a 4-star. The book follows Autumn as she navigates through high school, but the main point of the story is kind of seeing how her friendship with her childhood best friend Finn changes over the years, and boy, oh my god. Every time I think about this, I get sad, but I can't stop thinking about it. This whole book is basically one big trope that I'm not gonna tell you what it is because obviously I don't want to like spoil anything, but there's one big trope that I usually do not like in books, and recently I've been reading a lot of this trope in these books, but they've been doing really well. The author does it so well that it doesn't feel like this trope until the very ending, and then you kind of realize, oh, like it makes sense, it's kind of realistic, I can see how this happens. This book was super relatable, talking about high school, how kids react in high school, and I can just think back in my high school days, like yeah, people did act like this. I acted like this. I read this during my sad books for a week vlog, and I was expecting to cry during this, but I did not. I didn't cry. I teared up a little bit, but you kind of go into this already knowing what happens in the end because it's the very first page. Like you already know what you're kind of leading up towards. When things change, it's sad in general, so like I didn't cry. But I will say, this book hits harder after you've read it and you kind of think back on it. When I finished reading this book and I was laying in bed to go to sleep, I started thinking and I was like, oh, Autumn, Finn, their family, their friends, and I started crying. That is when I started crying, is when I really sat back and thought about all of the like little moments in the book that kind of foreshadowed or just hurt more knowing the ending and hurt more knowing all what you know after you finish the book. Yeah, I did cry, just not during the book and not on camera. I really enjoy this book. I am super excited for Finney's book to come out. His book is called If I Had Told Her, and oh my god, these titles break your heart more and more as you read. So I'm really excited because I just want to see his perspective. Yes, this one's sad, but I know his is gonna be freaking heartbreaking, and I'm ready for it. Do I recommend this book? Yes, I do recommend this book. When do I recommend you read this? I recommend you read this when you're ready for something not lovey-dovey. This is not a lovey-dovey book, so I want you to go into this when you're ready to be sad, when you're ready to feel something, and I want you to read this when you want to be sad, because this will make you sad. Even if it doesn't make you boohoo cry, it will just make you kind of like, dang, well that was depressing. Next up is If We Were Villains by M.L. Rio. And look how pretty this special edition from Barnes & Noble is. It was gorgeous. I had my eyes on this book for months, and when I saw the Barnes & Noble edition, I just had to get it. Like, it's so pretty, it's so sleek, and I just love how simple it is. For this book, think murder mystery, dark academia meets Shakespeare. This is a retelling of a Shakespearean tragedy, and I gave this book a 3.5. The book starts off where we meet Oliver, our main character, and he's in jail. Yes, he is in jail, and the lead investigator of the 10-year-old murder comes to visit Oliver in jail, which he does pretty regularly, but this time it's a little bit different. The investigator tells Oliver, hey, I'm retiring, so can you just tell me what happened 10 years ago? Because I would like to be able to sleep at night knowing the truth, because I know you lied. I know you guys lied. And Oliver is like, no, I don't think so. And the investigator's like, hey, listen, I'm retiring. That means I won't be able to tell on you guys. You guys won't be in trouble. You know, you already served your 10 years, so why not just tell me what happened? Clear your conscience. And then Oliver was like, you know what? Yeah, I'll tell you. I'll tell you about the murder of one of my friends 10 years ago. And that's how the story begins. This follows 6 characters in a college setting. They're in a really prestigious performing arts school and they're studying theater, more specifically Shakespeare. I really did enjoy this book. I found that like the dialogue and the script layout of the book was kind of fun to read. You know, it's kind of like you're reading a script for a play and they're just reenacting Shakespeare tragedies. They did Romeo, they did Caesar. I think they did another one. I don't exactly remember what play it was, but they were doing plays and they were going to school, right? So it was all fun and dandy. And then one of them dies. And that's where the murder mystery comes in. You kind of have to figure out who did it, why they did it. What's really interesting is this is a found family. These kids only have each other really as friends and family because most of their families don't support them going to college and studying theater. So they only really have each other, and one day one of them ends up dead. And you're like, dang, this is about to implode. Their friendships are about to implode. It was really interesting. You can see the trajectory of the story kind of following the timeline of a Shakespearean tragedy. So you can kind of guess what's going to happen and you can kind of play it out in your head and like guess the events, which I did. I guessed most of it. And I think that's why I gave it a 3.5. For it being like a mystery aspect, I gave it a 3.5. But the longer I think about it, if you think of it as a tragedy, like a Shakespeare tragedy, rather than a murder mystery, I think you would enjoy it a lot more. I think I would have enjoyed it a lot more, but I went into thinking it was a mystery, but I guessed most of it. I really enjoyed it. I really liked the characters. They were all very different and unique, but they kind of like meshed well together. I liked them. The only thing that I have kind of against the characters is that like I didn't really connect with them. They just felt like characters. They didn't feel like anything more. So I was just reading words on paper at that point about these students. I just didn't really care much about them. Would I recommend this book? Yes, I would recommend this book, and no, I would not recommend this book. So yes, I would recommend this book if you like dark academia vibes, if you like the theater setting and the like dark Shakespeare setting. Yes. I would not recommend if you are going into this wanting like a really simple turn off your brain read, because sometimes the dialogue and the descriptions can get a little bit wordy. I remember sometimes when I was just reading, I would think back like, oh, what did I just read? So I would have to reread it. I would say if you are fully mentally prepared for a book that has more description and Shakespearean speech and language, I would recommend. But if you're not, hold off until you are. Okay, so the last book I read for reading sad books for a week was Song of Achilles. Let me preface, I really enjoy this book. This is an interpretation of the tragic story of Achilles and Patroclus. I rated this book a 4.25. Being someone that loves mythology, I was so excited to read this book. I held off. I've been wanting to read this book for a really long time, and I think what's really fascinating is the fact that like both my best friend and I love mythology, but we both kind of interpreted the story a little bit differently. She gave it a 5-star and boohoo cried, whereas I gave it a 4.25 and did not boohoo cry. I got a little bit sad. So in this book, it follows Patroclus. He is an exiled prince and he ends up meeting Achilles one day. Achilles, if you guys do not know, is a demigod, the son between a god, goddess, and a human. And they end up meeting, they become friends, they become really lifelong companions. There are a lot of different retellings of Patroclus and Achilles, but they are always companions. Sometimes they are lovers, sometimes they are not. But in this story specifically, they are lovers. Like I said, my best friend and I kind of interpreted this book a little bit differently, and she loved this book a lot more than I did. She explained it to be, even though she knew the story of Achilles Achilles and Patroclus and she knew the ending, she knew everything that was gonna happen overall, she still went into this wanting that story because she felt like knowing the story and how it ends adds to the tragic ending, and it just made her so heartbroken. And she read it knowing that she was gonna get her heart broken, but she wanted that love story and she wanted to feel that love story. And I totally understand, I totally get where she's coming from. For me, I had my heart guarded. I was like, oh, I know the story of Achilles and Patroclus. This is about their love story. Let me just take 2 steps back and read the book. Let me throw my heart across the room so you can't shatter it, because I knew what was gonna happen and I just guarded myself a little too much, and I don't think I let myself fully immerse into the world that Madeline Miller painted out for Achilles and Patroclus. Overall, I enjoy the story. I thought it was fun. I still love the story. I do wish that it focused on their relationship a little bit more because it was such a big part of the story. It is about the relationship, it is about their romance. I wished it like focused on that more and it gave us more of the small interactions between the 2 characters rather than like, oh, the whole Trojan War and everything and like and time skip and you just know that they love each other and that's all you really get. It basically turned into an overview of the Trojan War basically, and not enough of their romance, I would say. Do I recommend this book? Yes, 100%. I do recommend this book. I do think that if you know the story between Achilles and Patroclus, go into this knowing that things could change. Madeline Miller can change stuff and it's not 100% what you think and what you know. So like, open your heart to the world of this retelling rather than going in like me with your heart guarded. Alright, the next book I picked up for the month was Caraval by Stephanie Garber. I've been eyeing this book for a really long time because I want to read Once Upon a Broken Heart. I knew this trilogy came out before it in the timeline in the universe for Stephanie Garber, so I wanted to read this first because I know you can read them separately. I do. I've heard people say, oh yeah, you can read them separately, but I don't know, there's something in my brain where it's like, if this happened before Once Upon a Broken Heart in the timeline of that universe, I'm definitely gonna read this first. Like, I really want to read this first. So I read it. This is a story about a magical circus that looks really innocent until you're playing the games. And I rated this book a 3.5. So this book follows Scarlett. She is the older sister to Donatella. They're about 2 years apart, I think. Maybe like a year and a half, something like that. And she grew up romanticizing about Caraval. She loved the idea. She loved the magic and the whimsical, magical aspect of the carnival. It's not a circus. I said it was a circus. It's not a circus. It's kind of like a carnival festival kind of situation. It's not just like a circus tent. Like, don't imagine that. Imagine a really, really magical, eccentric carnival. But yeah, she grew up romanticizing the idea of going to Caraval because people can't go in to Caraval unless you get a ticket from Master Legend himself, and he is basically like the ringleader and you can't go in without his permission or without a ticket. And she grew up sending letters to him. She's always been like begging him to get a ticket and he never replies to homie. He just leaves her on red for years. And one day she's like, you know what, let me just send one last letter to him. He finally replies to her and he's like, here's 2 tickets to Caraval. And now this sounds amazing, right? One thing leads to another. They end up going to Caraval and it sounds like a happy ending, right? Wrong, because your sister got kidnapped and it's gonna be used in the Caraval games. So what are you happy about? Donatella, the younger sister, gets kidnapped and Scarlett has to find her. It's a bunch of riddles, it's a bunch of clues that kind of help you get to Donatella, and all Scarlett wants to do is find her sister. She does not care about this carnival, but at the end of the day, you have to follow the carnival's rules and you have to play the game in order to find your sister. I thought the writing for this gives off a lot of Alice in Wonderland. It was very whimsical. A lot of the non-main characters were really, really whimsical and pretty eccentric. They were really unique and I can just picture like circus characters. So it was a lot of fun to read. I felt like the romance was a little bit off. It kind of felt like it came out of nowhere. I wasn't rooting for them, you know, like I thought it was a cute idea, but I didn't care. I was just like focusing on all the little different clues. But the romance just like, bam. It's just like, oh, I'm attracted to you, you're attracted to me. Yeah, romance. And so it just felt a little bit off to me. This is a trilogy. I'm sure it kind of goes into it more. As for the rest of the story, I found it really fun to read. I think Stephanie Garber did a really good job at keeping this book interesting. Like, she really drilled it into your head that you cannot trust anything that you see, because you could either be hallucinating, it could just be magic, or someone is just lying to you. So everything you read, you're like, oh, is this true? Like, is this actually happening? Or is this just another part of the caraval magic, making the game a little bit more difficult? So I thought that aspect of the magic in this world was a lot of fun. Caraval is magical, but it has a sprinkle of the truth in it. It could feel really fake. It could feel like it's all magic, but there's some truth to it. So it was a lot of fun to kind of decipher and trying to help Scarlett find her sister. I do really want to continue this series and see how this world plays out. Now, would I recommend this book 100%? Yes, that's what I'm saying. I loved all of the books I read this month, so yes, I do recommend this book. I don't want people to think that a 3.5 is not a good rating, because it is. It's above average, and I would highly recommend this if you are looking for a fun, whimsical fantasy that kind of sweeps you away but also gives you a little like mystery aspect to it. Now on to the romance, summer, whatever you want to call it, books that I read for the later half of July. And oh my god, guys, if you guys haven't seen these reading vlogs, definitely go watch them because I had a blast reading them. Let's start off with When in Rome by Sarah Adams. Ooh, this book is small, but it is not small in my heart because I love this book. Kind of just think Hannah Montana meets small town hot pie baker. Hannah Montana, pie baker. I gave this book a 5-star, and I still think about them. They're so adorable. So the book starts off with you meeting Amelia, or Ray, her stage name, and she is a international superstar. That is about it for her. That's all she really feels. She does not feel super in any other way other than the fact that she is a pop star. So she ends up taking a impromptu trip to Rome, Kentucky, just to get a breather. She just wants a break from her very fast-paced life. So she gets in her car and she ends up breaking down, not mentally, maybe a little bit mentally, but no, her car breaks down in the middle of nowhere and it's nighttime. Women's worst nightmare, for real. Like, I would be so freaking scared. So yeah, her car breaks down, a man comes out of nowhere, and she is literally about to get kidnapped and maybe even murdered. But that doesn't happen because bam, Noah, pie baker man, comes out and rescues her. Just kidding, there was no murderer. The man was just Noah. He didn't come out of nowhere though, because she broke down in his front yard. So he came out to try to help her, and she was like, I'm not trying to get murdered today. This is such a cute, feel-good romance book for the summer. Like, it was just so fun to read. It was so simple. You can shut off your brain and just read. Like, it was so easy to read and I loved every second of it. It gave off Wattpad story, but in a very good way, not in the bad way. Like, think of the Wattpad stories that have millions of reads. Just one of those really popular ones that everyone just loves because it's actually really well written. Think that for this. Like, this felt very Wattpad-y, but in the best ways possible. I was kicking my feet and giggling the entire time reading about these characters. Another thing is, for such a short book, like, this is 305 pages, and for a short book, I felt like the characters were really complex. Would I recommend this book? 100%. Are you kidding me? Read this book. If you haven't read this book, read this book. Definitely don't go into this thinking it's super complicated, because it's not. Like I said, it's simple, it's easy. Go into this wanting a summer romance that is super adorable. Alright, next up is Happy Place by Emily Henry, and dear God, guys, all I have to say is love, 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 and love. I went into this wanting a cute romance book for the summer, expecting it to be like When in Rome, but came out with so much more than that. I gave this book a 5-star. I do not regret it at all. Like, if I reread this and thought about it more, it would still be a 5-star. I love this book so much. It was so relatable. It is such a fun read. So you follow Harriet, and she's on the plane going on a vacation, her annual friendship vacation that she takes with her bestest friends ever, which I think is adorable. We love friendship. And it sounds all fun and dandy, right? Like, it's so cute. You're going on a vacation with your friends, and yes, where does the romance come in, Lucy? Yeah, oh, is she gonna meet like a really cute guy at this vacation spot? Is she gonna go to a pie store also and meet a pie baker? Or is she going to like the gym for the vacation? Like, who goes to the gym? Anyways, if you go to the gym, whatever, she's gonna go to the gym and she's gonna meet a gym bro. Like, what is gonna happen? How is she gonna fall in love on this vacation? No, she sees her ex. This book is a second chance romance. Why does she see her ex? It's because her ex and her share the same long-term friend group, so there's no escaping it. She was just surprised. She's like, oh, he actually showed up, and it's hilarious. So now you're probably thinking, well, how is this gonna play out? How is there a second chance romance? Lucy, if they broke up, it's probably for a good reason, and I'm not gonna root for them. I thought the same thing, bestie. I thought, like, if they broke up for a good reason, why would I want to root for them? I never understood second chance romances until I read this book. Besties, give it a chance, because what do sane people do when they see their ex on vacation, go their separate ways, kind of just ignore each other? No. They end up pretending that they're still together because they don't want to tell their friends that they broke up, because they don't want to ruin the vacation. So you get an ex-couple pretending that they're still a couple on vacation with their best friends in a small town island. I love the setting. I love that. I love the drama in that. Like, that sounds so dramatic, and I freaking love that. I will say a lot happens in this book. Emily Henry has a way of writing romance as a main plot, but also as a subplot. So yes, the romance is obviously the main point of Happy Place, but I read this and got so much more out of this story. Happy Place is such a heartbreaking story about love, friendship, family, all of the above. And I feel like the reason why I loved it even more than I would have like in the past. I would have loved it in the past, but I think I loved it more because I read it at the most perfect time I could read this book. I started this book when I started my road trip from Florida to New York. My boyfriend and I moved multiple states away from our friends and family, and it was really sad. So when I read this book on that road trip, it felt really incredibly relatable. Just her relationship with her family, her relationship with her friends, just life as you get older, you graduate college, everyone's going their own ways, everyone has their own careers that they have to follow, their own lives that they have to follow, but you kind of want to still stay friends, but you work extra hard to keep them together, to keep your friendships and your relationships together. I really highly recommend this book. If you take anything from this video, yes, I recommend all these books, but this is my #1 choice that I recommend you guys. Please, please, please give Happy Place a chance. It's categorized as a romance, but I would put it in literary fiction also. Like, this is so much more than just a romance book. And for the 7th and last book that I read in January was Beach Read by also Emily Henry, the queen. She's honestly going to become one of my favorite authors because these 2 books were my first experience from her, and I loved both of them. The grumpy and mysterious Augustus writes literary fiction, while bright and positive January writes of love and happy endings. The 2 authors start a little competition where they switch genres, and I gave this book a 4.75. This book was such a fun read, and the pacing of it made it feel like I was watching a movie in my own head flawlessly. I loved the pacing. It just felt so natural, and I blew through this book so quickly. I blew through it. Again, the romance of this book is said to be the main plot point, which I understand, I see how it is, but it's not just about the romance. The characters are so complex. The topics that are discussed in this book are so super realistic and relatable to some people. Not relatable to me, but I can sympathize with these topics because these are very real topics that people go through in life, and I just thought it just made the characters so complex and so interesting. It made January and Augustus so intriguing to read about. And the only reason why I gave this book slightly lower than a 5-star was because I didn't fully connect with the characters. That's not to say that I didn't love the characters, because I do really love the characters. I just didn't see myself in those characters. They're authors. I'm not an author. I'm not a writer. I hate writing. But I could sympathize with them, and I think Emily Henry did a really good job with writing characters that I think most people can sympathize with, even if they don't relate to them. These are two authors, Augustus and January. They are complete opposites. Augustus writes literary fictions. He will kill off people. He doesn't have happy endings because, you know what, to him, life does not have happy endings all the time. Like, everyone grows old and dies in the end, right? Everyone dies, and that is ultimately not a happy ending. And then January, she had such loving parents and she loved the idea of love. So she starts writing about love stories and romances and happy endings. And one day they end up meeting because of very unfortunate events, and they get to talking, and they're like, you know what, you cannot write my genre. You would not be able to write my genre. You think this is easy? Why don't you try writing it? So they switch and they try to write in each other's genres. So Augustus has to go on multiple dates with January where she tries to make it super romantic and cute and fun. And then Augustus takes her to talk to and interview with suicide cult members, ex-past suicide cult members, and like, that is such a drastic turn, and I thought that was such a fun little premise, and it was really fun to read. I really enjoy this. Like I said, I blew through this book. One big thing about Emily Henry is that she writes her characters to be really snarky and banters really well. I love the banter in Emily Henry books. They are so unhinged and so fun. But yeah, these are all the books that I've read in January. I love these books. I enjoyed these books. But overall, I feel like I had a pretty good month, and I'm really excited for August because I am in such a big fantasy mood right now. I hope you guys enjoy this video, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye!